Evolution Petroleum. What can I say about this stock? Well, it pays very high dividends. It's been around for about 20 years, or I think actually over 20 years. It has been able to survive multiple market crashes, and it's been actually able to maintain paying out those dividend payments. So on the surface, that doesn't sound too bad. It actually sounds pretty good, but this is a tiny oils and gas stock. My big question is, can it keep doing this for the next 10 years, or is it too tied to oil prices and politics to be safe? Well, stick with me because I'm going to be giving an honest breakdown on this company and tell you what I honestly think about this stock. Alright, really quick. So let me tell you a little bit about Evolution Petroleum, ticker symbol EPM. As I already mentioned, it is a small oil and gas company that buys stake and ownership of oil fields and natural gas fields all over the United States through investments from the stock. You, the investors, buy up shares of this company, and with that money, they go out and buy oil fields and natural gas fields, and they don't actually handle any of the operational costs or do any of the drilling themselves, but they do collect some of the revenue and profits from their stake, and they distribute those earnings back to us, the investors. So with that being said, I'm going to be walking you guys through the key stats, my own position on this stock, and give you my honest take on this investment, and if it's something that is worth your time and investment as well. So stick with me. And with that being said, if you enjoy these type of video breakdowns, please hit that like button, subscribe so you guys don't miss out on the next one. And a quick side note, if you want to get started investing and you don't know how, use my Robinhood link down in the description. You get one free stock if you sign up. You don't have to put any money down. It's a pretty great way to get started investing. That's how I actually got started investing. I wish I knew about this much earlier on when I was much younger, but I just didn't know how to do it. So take advantage of that. And if you want to get into crypto investing, check out my Coinbase link. You get $10 in free crypto when you sign up and invest $5 or more. And with that, let's dive in. All right, let's look at the actual numbers here. So this company has a market cap of $130 million, which honestly is not that big. It's actually relatively really small. The stock right now currently trades at about $3.63, which pretty much categorizes it as a penny stock. And I do believe by definition a penny stock is any stock that is below $5. So technically this is a penny stock, and it hasn't dipped below $1, which would put that at a massive risk since it does risk being delisted since this is on the New York Stock Exchange. But being that it's really cheap to buy, it kind of worries me if it ever comes to that. It IPO'd back in 2004, but from the earliest data that I could find on this stock, the stock price was at $2.90 back in July of 2006. And since then, it's only had a small gain of 25.17%, which yikes, that's not a massive gain. It hit its all-time high at $13.16 back in January of 2014, and it hasn't been anywhere close to that since then. The dividend yield is currently at 13.08%, which is honestly insanely high. Most investors suggest that you invest in safer dividend yields that are under 2%. Personally, I put my risk at 5%, but 13%, wow, that sounds like a major risk. So the beta on this is at 0.27, which if you don't know what that means, it pretty much means that this stock is less volatile than the overall market. So if the overall market goes up 10%, then EPM would go up just 2.7%, and vice versa. Earnings have been pretty inconsistent with several negative quarters recently, and their last earnings call was a huge disaster, but hedge funds have been net buyers lately, which signals that they're being pretty bullish on this stock and expect this to grow in the future. Okay, so let's talk about any recent news with Evolution Petroleum. Honestly, there is not much news The only thing we can find is just their Q3 results that came out back in May of this year, and honestly there's not much there. It's just them announcing their 51st consecutive quarterly dividend at 12 cents per share. Aside, there's just nothing interesting, just fire chats here and there about their acquisitions and cash flow. And by acquisitions, I mean them just buying up more oil fields and natural gas fields. So overall, it's been pretty quiet, but with some positive momentum, but nothing really major. Okay, let's talk about my personal position into the stock because I do own some shares. So currently I own 14 shares of this company with an average cost of $4.34. I bought back in September of 2024 and I've actually been receiving consistent dividend payments of 12 cents per share, totaling up to $6.24. So they've been pretty consistent with those dividend payments and they have not cut it since I started investing. So in stock lending, I didn't know this was a thing, but I made 3 cents. But with that all factored in, I'm currently down on this investment with my total return being at negative $9.96, basically $10 at that point. And if you combine that with my dividend payments and stock lending, I would be down still on this investment, putting it at negative $3.69. So yeah, this is not really my best investment. I don't like seeing myself negative on any investments, no matter how tiny they are. I want to see them in the green. So now the big question is this company worth the investment? I'm going to give you some pros and some cons. So let's start with the pros. I don't know if you really can count this as a pro, but hear me out. They do have a pretty high dividend yield, but they've actually been able to manage to pay those dividends through tough times. So high dividend yield and consistent payments. Most companies would just take the approach to just overall pause their dividend payments and cause major inconsistencies when it's inconvenient. But EPM has been able to deliver. And also another pro of this company is that they've been able to survive 20 years, over 20 years I'm pretty sure. And the oil and gas prices staying strong or even rising, this stock can actually deliver decent income. But by the same token, this is a very small company with inconsistent earnings and a history of cutting dividends during downturns. And by cutting dividends, I don't mean that they stop paying dividends, I mean that they'll just pay less per share. So instead of paying 12 cents per share, they'll probably just end up slashing that dividend payment to just 2.5 cents per share. So that's a pretty big con. Another con is that it is heavily exposed to oil and gas prices, which operates pretty cyclically. By that, I mean, if you look at the chart, you see some highs and then you see some lows, you see some highs again, you see some lows. So that's just the company operating cyclically, and that's pretty much tied to the oil and gas prices, which, you know, if you know anything about oil and gas prices, every 4 years they'll be up and then they would be down. Gas prices at the pump would be expensive for a few years and then it will come down. So yeah, one bad cycle or policy shift could hurt it really badly. And the high yield also comes with risk, as I mentioned. I mean, they're not paying consistent dividends, but they've actually been able to keep those consistent dividends for the last 5 years. So I would say they've been pretty solid, but it doesn't really grow as much. So if you're looking for growth on this stock price, this stock really isn't it. You're honestly just better off looking at blue chip stocks or the tech stocks. All right, let me give you guys my personal take because I'm a bit mixed with this stock. I've already kind of shared a little bit, but let me dive into it a bit more. So my gut feeling on this stock is that it's very volatile, and for me, it doesn't look like a safe investment where I can just be throwing my money in. As I already mentioned, the stock is tied very closely to the prices of gas and oil, and since it is cyclical, I feel there is some upside with investing in this stock, potentially able to make money out of it. By that I mean, so let's think about this. If you are able to buy shares of this stock when the price is low and just load up on your shares and then just keep holding throughout the years, you will just be collecting dividend payments, which in essence is growing your portfolio and growing your money. And when the stock price goes up, you can sell that off and then buy in back again when the stock price is low. So I feel like there is some strategy with this, but my concern though is what happens when the stock price just is at its low levels. That's where my gut feeling feels some risk, because when the stock price is low and you just saw it sharply go down, there's just this bad sentiment that goes around where you just feel like it's too risky to even buy in, and then you miss out on it and the stock price goes up. So yeah, I don't really like that. That's not like one of my favorite type of investments that I like to make. I sort of feel like this is gambling in a way, so it's definitely not one of my favorite stocks. I feel like it's way too volatile for me, and gambling with that coupled with the dividend yield being extremely high, to me just screams out too much risk. Let's go with something more safer. But yeah, with that being said though, this company has been able to survive many market crashes. Well, I don't know, probably just like two. One in 2008 and one in 2020. I'm not somebody that loves to play with volatility, but let me make something really clear. This is not financial advice, so always do your own research when deciding what to do. Alright, that is my full honest take on Evolution Petroleum. If this video helped you see both sides of this stock or give you something useful to think about, hit that like button. I try to do a balanced take on these stocks just because I don't want to influence any decisions on here when it comes to investing, so I try to keep it balanced, give you some pros, give you some cons, but subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown, and also comment down below what stock you guys would want me to cover. I'm trying to do a whole series of just covering dividend stocks and eventually go into crypto. So if you guys have anything in mind that you want me to take a look at, just let me know. Leave it down in the comments. And also, if you haven't checked out my last breakdown, be sure to check that out. I did a breakdown on select water solutions. Should be around here. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.